You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This week we are talking about the American science fiction adventure giant monster film Jurassic Park 3, directed by Joe Johnston, released July 18th, 2001.
Oh, goodness. This is the day before my birthday.
Ooh.
I don't think I went to see it in the theater, though. I can't remember when I first saw this movie, but I've seen it many times since it came out.
First saw it at a friend's house as a kid. I remember that, and it scared the absolute shit out of me, as the first two did.
As it should.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess, 2001? I'm going to, date myself, or show my age or lack thereof, as I like to say when I'm talking about it. Because I have a lot of older friends, older than me. Not necessarily old people, but older than me.
Good use of words there, Pake.
Yeah. 2001 would have been, want to make sure I'm doing the math right and not looking stupid. No, I guess I would have, because it's 92, so 9.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I had been exposed to the other ones already, and they already had terrified me, but then actually wanting to watch another, I was like, ooh, a new Jurassic Park movie while I was still young and easily scared of these things.
I know, and yet you turned out to be such a lover of those things now.
Yes.
It's so fun that you kind of switched it around. You're not scared, and you get to talk about them every week.
I say it scared the crap out of me, but I still loved every second of it. I was obsessed. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely glad that they didn't scare you away and that we get to do this podcast every week. Otherwise, it would not be quite nearly as fun.
For sure.
Well, I'll start us off the way I usually do with our behind-the-scenes look. And what I found out for our nuggets for this week, Jurassic Park 3 was filmed in Hawaii and California. It is the first film that was in this series at this time that was not directed by Steven Spielberg. Director Joe Johnston also directed Jumanji, which came out in 1995, as well as a little-known movie called The Rocketeer. It was a Disney film, I believe. He also directed October Sky and Captain America: The First Avenger, which...
Nice.
Yeah, that was such a great film.
Those are all really good movies. I think The Rocketeer is the only one I haven't seen.
I have a sneaking suspicion that you would love that movie.
Probably. But yeah, Jumanji, because 95 is Jumanji. That's Robin Williams.
Yes.
And so much greatness. And then, Captain America, I'm a huge Marvel nerd.
Yes.
And October Sky, I love that movie. I actually watched that, I think, in a science class in school.
Oh, wow.
We were doing our own little rockets and stuff, not quite at that level, but it was a fun little, and just whatever teacher that I had was just obsessed with that movie. So made us all watch it, and I'm glad for it because it was a lot of fun.
That is great.
Homer Hickam and the Rocket Boys.
Jurassic Park 3 also marked the return of Sam Neill's Dr. Alan Grant, and we also did get a brief appearance by Laura Dern, who was Dr. Ellie Sattler. The movie takes place on Isla Sorna, which is Site B. It was the location for The Lost World, and it is part of the island chain Las Cinco Muertes. Budget for this film was $93 million, and it grossed $368.8 million at the box office. It is 92 minutes long, and Pake, bring us one of your fabulous synopses.
All right. In Jurassic Park 3, I say this synopsis without spoiling things, as if you're listening to this episode not have seen this movie before, but I like these ones, so that's what I do. But it goes in to say, a decidedly odd couple with ulterior motives convinces Dr. Grant to go to Isla Sorna for a holiday, but their landing means terror and survival to the island's new inhabitants.
Yes. You've alluded to a few things there, but nothing is given away, so that is good.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and give it all away now.
I feel like we have to. I feel like we have to kind of, dive into this and dig in, parachute in,
Yes.
paraglide into our discussion for this week.
Yes. And we'll go ahead and get started off. We've kind of morphed into this format over the past couple of months, whatever, and I like it. Characters and then dinosaurs and then other notes. I like it. It's a good way to do this conversation, and I don't know why I'm bringing it up, just to pat ourselves on the back. I think we found a fun format, and I like it. So
I have to agree with that. I love our format, and I'm excited how it adds to our ability to be able to bring these stories to life in a different way, rather than just being a straight recap of everything that happens. I like to talk about the characters and break it down through, their arcs in the story.
Yeah. You can't talk a Jurassic Park movie that he's in without starting everything off with Dr. Alan Grant, Sam Neill.
Oh, goodness. Dr. Grant. I feel like he was still trying to study dinosaurs right from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. His experiences in the first Jurassic Park at Isla Nublar have not deterred him from his search and love of things dinosaur. I mean, maybe he doesn't like them quite as much. I had a physical thought, but it's definitely spurred him on to be like, okay, now from the things that I've seen, that actually really helps and like spurs on like this other research of how things really were back in those eras, in those days. Because I mean, of course, his interactions with these dinosaurs, and he says it in this movie, is like, these aren't exactly what, the dinosaurs were like back in the day, because these are all genetically modified by InGen to be something a little different. But he's like, but it at least gives me hints and clues on things that it puts some puzzle pieces together.
Yes. And I feel like in his head, he has split them into two things. He's got the extinct dinosaurs that he is digging up the fossils and trying to piece back together. And then there are the genetically engineered ones that he learns from, but he does not consider them the same. At least that's a feeling that I got. I feel like he splits them into two line items versus lumping them all together.
Yes. And so we see him pretty early on. He's kind of reunited. I'm sure that not necessarily, I guess in a way he kind of is reunited, because I'm thinking maybe they've kept in touch. But then Ellie's husband even does mention like, oh, you two have a lot to catch up on. So it has been a little while.
It has, yeah.
But he's reuniting and catching up with Dr. Ellie Sadler. And he's the dinosaur man.
I loved that.
As his son Charlie calls him. It's adorable.
I loved when he was trying to tell Charlie about, well, those are herbivores. They wouldn't do that. They eat trees. And Ellie tells him basically, like, can we wait till he's 5?
Yeah.
To try to explain those things. And then Charlie turns to his dad and says, holds up, I think it was the Brachiosaurus, and says, this is an herbivore, and that's the dinosaur man. And I just loved that. I thought it was adorable. So cute.
Yes. A lot of those things come back into play.
Yeah, they do.
We'll cover it, but talk about the dinosaurs. But yeah, I mean, we get the big showdown between Spinosaurus and T-Rex, and immediately the first thing I think of is Alan sitting there with Charlie with these. No, these are the carnivores, and they do like to fight each other, and they'll rip each other.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, nice. That was funny. That was really funny. I mean, we can talk a little bit about Ellie and her connection to Grant, because I think the two do connect to each other. Mm-hmm. We see that Ellie has moved on and she's gotten married and she has 2 children, one of which is Charlie, but they never really talk of the other child. They don't really mention.
All you get is a baby crying in the other room. That's it.
Yeah. So we really don't know that much about it. But you can see that Alan is still very good friends with her. Mm-hmm. And it makes me a little sad, because I always hoped that they would end up together, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But he let go. She's moved on with her life, and he's kind of working in his little world, trying to get more money or funding or support for his research. So he's presenting at this conference, And he just basically, the one thing that stood out to me was that he was talking about velociraptors, and he said if they hadn't gone extinct, they probably would have been the dominant species, not man.
Yeah. And so his research that we pick up at the beginning of this movie, that's what his focus is velociraptors.
Yes.
And mainly their vocalizations used to communicate, and the way that they have just this incredible intelligence that even, supersedes a lot of like intelligent animals on Earth today.
Yes.
And so, yeah, but the research isn't what people are that like interested in, because you see he's got this whole room full of people listening to his speech, but they all look bored and they like just don't care. And it's like, how is he going to draw such a crowd even if they're not really interested? But then we get that at the end. It's like, just questions for Dr. Grant, and then everybody, because all people want to talk about is Jurassic Park and his experiences there.
Yes.
I love how he's used to this. He takes the mic and it's just like, okay, now anybody with a question that's not about Jurassic Park. And then like most of the hands go down. And he's like, anybody have any questions that have nothing, that aren't related to the incident in San Diego, which he's referring to Lost World.
Yes.
Which I think is a nice little nod, since we're going back to that island.
Yes, I liked that connection.
Yeah, because he was like, I wasn't even there. I had nothing to do with that, so I can't tell you anything. So
I like that he was honest about it. But then all the hands went down.
Except for one guy.
One guy.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy that asked him a question about going back to the island to study them, and he's he's not down with that. I think his time on the island the first time was more than enough for him.
Yep.
I don't think he wanted to go back in any shape or form.
Yeah. So yeah, he had nothing. Nothing is going to get me to go back. Well, until it does.
Until it does. I feel like that is the thing with every movie, or maybe not every movie, but a lot of the movies we cover, everyone always says no until they say yes. Mm-hmm. And it's just an ongoing thing. And we see Dr. Grant get back on his dig site and tells his assistant, well, not good, didn't go well. We probably, in 4 weeks, we're going to have to pack up. And then I think Billy, his assistant, says, no, 3, because I had to rent some other equipment. Yeah. Like, oh boy, they're at the end of it. They don't have very much money left.
Yeah. And he says nothing's going to get him back on the island. But the one thing that will is this research and this promise, even if it ends up being kind of a false promise, of somebody funding this for him pulling a little favor, which of course is all like just a guy's that never was the reason that he was going. But we'll go ahead and talk about that because, we get the kind of entrance of Paul Kirby, played by William H. Macy. And, he shows up and says, oh, me and my wife were these billionaires, basically, Kirby Enterprises. And, we've been to every incredible place on Earth, but we want to go.
K2. Yeah, they mentioned K2.
Like Galapagos and all these places. And he's like, but now we want to see these dinosaurs. And he tells them, oh, we're just going to fly over and you're just going to be our guide. And you can tell us all the cool things about all the dinosaurs we see. And, they say everything, he says everything the right way to get Alan on board.
Oh, definitely.
Money and support for his research.
Yeah.
And so, there's the thing that brings him back to the island, except it's not really back because as we find out, as they're just like, well, we needed somebody who's been to the island before. He's like, I've never been to this island. There. You guys didn't do enough research, apparently.
They're not even in, and the thing is, Isla Sorna, Isla Nublar are not even in the same island chain.
Mm-hmm.
So, it didn't make a lot of sense. They obviously didn't do enough research.
No.
They should have maybe gone to Dr. Malcolm and asked him to fly over.
Which I know how Malcolm would have been in that situation also. I think Malcolm doesn't have any other research that he's struggling to work on.
No, not at all.
His answer would have been a hard hell no. And I don't think there's anything that could have moved him.
He would have called people and tried to get the whole thing stopped.
Yeah, because he's already gone back once to this.
Yes.
Now he has been on this island. And
yes.
It didn't go well.
No, not at all. His friend Eddie, R.I.P. Eddie, that was sad.
Mm-hmm.
So many people died. Oh, goodness. Yeah, Malcolm definitely would have said no.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have put a stop to it. I think
yeah.
he would have gone the extra mile. I think he would have been calling governments to shut it down. Even though they really didn't have permission in the first place anyway. We find out. Those Kirby's. Adventurers.
Very sly. But it's not like, because even I mentioned on the synopsis, like ulterior motives, but it's not like it's anything like bad or malevolent.
It's not malicious.
Malicious. They're going to do whatever they can to save their son. And yes. I think I understand that. And I think, you can't hold them, as a villain in that case, because with the little bit of resource that they have, they're going to do everything that they can. And
of course.
I can't judge them and blame them for that.
No. But Dr. Grant doesn't find out about this until they're a little ways in. Because he is on the plane with 3 mercenaries or guides or whatever you want to call them. So he's on the plane and he's reluctantly agreed. And he's trying to show them this Brachiosaurus group, the alpha male, and some Triceratops, and no one is paying attention to him.
Yeah, he's like, if you look out this window, he's trying to do his guide job real well.
Yes.
He's ready to wear that badge. He's like, okay, look out your left window and you'll see this. But then the only response is like, so did you see anything? Nope, nothing. He's like, I'm fucking showing you.
I know. And
what do you mean you don't see anything? You just see him get frustrated.
I really felt for him because he was trying to do his job. And then when he starts overhearing things that are stuff that starts triggering these flags, the flags are getting raised in his head. Wait a minute, what are you talking about, landing? And then he gets hit in the head by Cooper.
Yeah.
But the Kirbys didn't listen to Grant very often. He tried to tell them, it's no safe place. Anything he tries to tell them, they weren't listening to. Because they were parents and they were focused on their child. Yep. And so they didn't listen when he was trying to explain to them that this island is not a safe place. And there is no safe place there. They just wouldn't listen to him. And I get it, because coming from a parent perspective, I guess. I'm not a parent, but I'm looking at these characters and thinking, all they're thinking about is saving their son.
Yeah.
So they're not going to pay attention. They're going to move heaven and earth like most parents would to keep their child safe or locate their child that's lost on an island with dinosaurs. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, it's been 8 weeks. They're desperate.
Yeah. No one's helped them. They've gotten no help from the Costa Rican government, from the embassy, nothing.
Yeah.
Sad.
So yeah, they land down, and then he's not really getting everything together yet, but they're out there yelling, Eric, Ben, and he's like, that's a really bad idea. I love how that becomes kind of the recurring joke throughout the movie. That's a really bad idea.
Yes.
And it proves to be a really bad idea.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine that Dr. Grant would know it's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting moment. Yeah, where, we hear this big roar and Billy's like, Tyrannosaurus. Because, Billy's going to be nerding out a little bit. This is his first time. Yeah. But I love how then, and Grant's like, no, that's something bigger.
Yes. Much bigger. Yeah. I have some notes on that later when we talk about the dinosaurs in this film.
Yeah. But bye-bye, Cooper.
Oh, poor Cooper.
He didn't last very long.
No, he didn't. And he was kind of a tough guy. When they were all, shooting and blowing up the plane, I'm thinking, okay, these guys are pretty, they're pretty scary in their own right. They'll probably be okay.
They didn't last long at all. Cooper and Nash, gone quick.
Bye-bye. It's over.
Yep. But yeah, that incident with Cooper and the Spinosaurus then wrecks the plane.
Oh, goodness. And
yeah, at that point, you just see Alan Grant being like, not this shit again. Like, now I'm on the island and there's no way off.
Yep, you're stuck here. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I mean, Dr. Grant, as usual, is always coming at things from this, the side of science and research. And so he and Billy had this really cool conversation about, well, the Spinosaurus wasn't on Injun's list.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Grant's like, it makes me wonder what else they were up to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you can never, ever discount Injun because the way they operate, they could be doing anything.
Yeah. And we see some of the more creative things that they're up to in the coming sequels.
Yes, we do. 2 particular dinosaurs that are quite, they're quite terrifying.
But yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Well, even though we're only like at the beginning of the island portion of the movie, I don't have a lot of other notes about Alan because it's kind of setting up a lot of his story. And then a lot of the rest of the movie is kind of him reacting and acting with other characters.
Yes, agreed. There was one thing I kept noticing too, like whenever there are dinosaurs around, he's always very interested, but there is a particular expression he gets on his face when they're around raptors. Yeah. Any raptors. Doesn't matter if it's the raptors themselves or the nests, his face, it just has this expression of terror. There's
a certain trauma that is associated with the raptors and what he went through on Jurassic Park and Isla Nublar.
Yes.
And I mean, we see that when they're on the plane flying in, when he's asleep and he's having this like dream, kind of a nightmare in a way, that includes the raptor talking to him as Billy. But and it's kind of comical, but it also lets you see that like he is like these raptors are like a living nightmare for him. Like he's still traumatized from the things that he experienced on Nublar, even though it's kind of one of those things like, you know, we talk like Dante's Peak and Twister and different things like that, where like sometimes a certain trauma of something, instead of making somebody completely afraid of something, but it also gives them more of a curiosity and desire to know more and like kind of want to be the master of that thing. And so I think it's kind of a mix of that with Grant, is he's terrified of raptors as far as he's not ever going to want to be in a situation where he's near one again, but has given him a lot more drive to research what they were, and this like kind of more curiosity and, you know, wanting to understand them better.
Yes, but not on the island.
No.
From the safety of his dig, where all he is doing is digging up skeletons, fossils, not face to face with a raptor.
Mm-hmm.
Either Raptor Billy or any raptor, or even the eggs in the nest. He is not down.
Oh yeah,
not down at all.
So yeah, when he sees that Billy has taken the eggs and he knows the territorial and like pack mentality of these creatures, that just how upset, rightfully so, he is, because I mean, you know, Udesky is gone. He's dead because of these raptors, because you took these eggs and they've been tracking us down.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, Billy has tried to hide that from him the entire time by keeping them in his camera bag.
Mm-hmm.
The entire time he's got them. He tries to do this the whole time, and until Grant gets possession of the bag and tries to get it back, and Billy gets very forceful, then Grant actually looks in and sees that there are 2 raptor eggs in there. I think that's when they're at this little outpost. It was after Udesky had died.
Yeah.
And they're at the outpost together that he uncovers this, and he basically says to Billy, you're no better than anyone, than the people that are genetically engineering them. And he feels bad after that because of events that are coming in the film. And you just I feel bad for him, because he's under false pretenses been taken to a place that certainly wasn't the site of the terror in his life, but it definitely reminds him of the worst experience he ever had. Yeah. And I felt for him that he was dragged back into that, because it's not pleasant. You know, he's still obviously got some sort of post-traumatic stress about it. And it was just really sad to see him go there, and then to get, you know, he's counting on Billy. It's like, I can't let anything happen to you, because then I'll be left with the tourists. And then Billy disappoints him too. So he's just, at that point, I feel like he feels like he's all by himself.
Yeah.
Like he's really the only one left. Although I think he bonded with Eric really well, which we'll talk about a little bit once we get to Eric's character.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, do you have anything else really on Alan as a character? Then let's go ahead. I think next in my list is Billy, which we've been talking about here a little bit, with the eggs and things like that. But to backtrack a little bit, we have Billy Brennan, who's a paleontologist as well, or at least a student of paleontology, who's working under Dr. Alan Grant. And I thought it was funny. He says, I had to spend some money on some equipment. And then he shows him what this amazing equipment, groundbreaking technology, scientific, futuristic, whoever could imagine a 3D printer.
As a tech person.
A prototyper, as he's referred to here. Because I was like, it was funny to watch it now and go back and see this. 'Cause like, wow. Back in the world of 2001, where a 3D printer was such a crazy invention, because now they're easily available for general household use.
I loved that. As someone who is such a tech nerd, seeing that, I'm thinking, oh, this was so early on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I loved it. And the fact that he used it to replicate like the larynx, the resonating chamber.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, okay, now he's done this. It's got to come in later in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Has to. There's no reason why he's created this and he's just going to not use it. But when he blew on it, Dr. Grant's face. I mean,
for that second, there's like flashback, like, oh God.
Yeah, not fun. Not good at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt for that. I also thought it was a funny moment when they're on the plane and he asks Cooper, well, how do you know the Kirbys? Like, just this very general question. And Cooper looks at him and said, church. And I'm thinking, sure. I don't know what church you go to. Pretty sure you didn't meet them at church. I know you didn't meet them at church. It was just kind of a comical thing.
Yeah.
I thought.
But yeah, and then Billy is just kind of along the ride up until we get to the point what we were talking about. Is his kind of big moment is the fact that he decides to steal a couple of these raptor eggs.
Yes.
And his reasoning is, they get off the island and go back home. If they survive this, then he can sell them and make a bunch of money to help towards the research.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the best intentions, and there's that whole thing is, Grant tells him some of the most horrible, terrible things that have ever been done have been done with the best intentions.
Yes, exactly. And that, I mean, because look back at Hammond, okay? Hammond, yes, I think he was trying to play God a bit. But I also think he did have some respect for the science behind things. I think he probably had a lot more respect once Jurassic Park didn't work or failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you're looking at that situation, it's true. Everyone wants to think that they would do something, with their heart. Like it's because they feel like they need to do it.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't go well. It just, things like that don't always work.
Yeah. And Alan had picked up on a lot of this stuff before because he's noticing it's a little weird, the fact that these raptors, not just are hunting them down, but it's even when they do find them that they're using different tactics. And,
oh my God.
But they're not just killing them. Like there's something else going on. And even as he's watching them is like, what are you trying to say to each other? What are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that there's something a little off. He notices there's a mission mentality versus hunting. And
they're calling for help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is going on? And they're talking. I mean, it's really like they don't have a hive mind, but they have this communication system that they've developed. And remember, there's been no one on this island, as we learned in The Lost World. There's been no one here. These animals were abandoned. There's been no one there monitoring them. There's been no one there even doing any research on them.
Yeah.
So how they've adapted since then, no one really knows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we see that, and then so it kind of culminates to that point where he finds the eggs, and we talked about that a second ago. But yeah, it's kind of this big, wedge between Grant and Billy at that point.
Yes.
Where, yeah, he's kind of over him for a little bit. He's very upset. And I think, again, he does take it kind of, hard, or he realizes maybe he was too hard on Billy when Billy supposedly dies later in the movie, and he's
tries to be the hero.
Yeah, the last words I said to him was that you were just as bad as the people who built this place, and it's not true. He was just young and adventurous, and didn't think before he acted all the time, and that's people do that.
Well, and he was trying. I mean, it wasn't even anything for himself. I mean, yes, Billy was focused on the work that he's been doing with Grant, but I feel like he was also trying to think of how to impress Grant as his boss by coming in to save the day, by bringing these eggs and being able to make some money to keep the dig going.
Yeah.
I think he was trying to impress him, and it just backfired because those Raptors, they were not far behind. Mm-hmm. But it's funny to think about Raptors, as menacing as they are. It's funny to think that they may not have been as menacing as some of the other dinosaurs, or at least one other dinosaur in this movie, which we'll talk about in a bit. Yeah.
But yeah, Billy has his moment of, I guess, redemption. In a way, I mean, yeah, because even when we do find out at the end of the movie that he is still alive and he's been okay, that, Grant does reunite with him, that they seem to be okay. He's glad to see him. And that redemption is, we get that little background of their in one of their conversations where he is known to like free dive and like jump off stuff and go parachuting. And he's kind of an adrenaline junkie anyway, because he tells that story about that. So the reason he had that camera bag with him is the strap saved him when he was, gliding, parachuting somewhere and hit a wall and was trapped, and it kept him safe. Just kind of what happened here.
Yes.
That redemption moment where he decides he's going to save Eric from the pteranodons.
Yes.
And he jumps out of the cage and he goes parachuting in and swoops in and saves Eric. And then, an gust of wind picks him up and throws him against the wall, and he's stuck there hanging again. With enough time to, he finally does get free. He's swarmed on and taken over by these pteranodons, and it looked like that's the end of him for the time being.
Yeah, I really thought that it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen this movie several times, and I forget, like, it's been a while since the last time I watched it, and so I forgot that he didn't die, and so I was completely like, oh yeah, there he goes. Like, I forget that I had forgotten that he shows up alive again at the end of the movie, so it was like a surprise again, 10 years after the last time I've watched it, probably.
Yeah, because I wasn't expecting it. This time I remembered that he lived at the end, but I swear the first few times I watched it, I never remembered that he made it out in the end. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, he rescued Grant's hat. Yeah. It's like, I saved your hat. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, it's good to see him alive again. Because I guess he must have, when he was attacked and, he was injured pretty badly. I mean, you see a lot of cuts and scrapes and gashes on him, and he's hurt, but he must have just floated down that river and washed up on shore somewhere where the military found him when they came in.
I know. I was looking at that, though, when that scene was happening and they were picking at him. All I could think of was from King Kong when the leaf bird creatures pulled that guy off the boat and tore him to pieces. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah. It took me back to that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there's Billy's story.
Yes.
So I guess we get to the other pretty important people here, which is the Kirby family.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm going to start with Eric myself.
I feel like we can.
Mm-hmm. He's the first one we see right off the top of the movie, pretty much, the very beginning. That's what we first see is Eric and his mother's boyfriend, I guess, is kind of
Ben Hildebrand. Yes, his mother's boyfriend.
And for some reason, they are paragliding off the side of Isla Sorna. I don't know why they're doing that.
Not sure why.
the Five Deaths island chain doesn't seem like the best place to take tourists out to paraglide, but okay. I'll roll with it. There's a few things in this movie that I just had to roll with.
Yeah.
But yeah, as they're paragliding, the boat is attacked by something. I have a theory on that I like.
You do? What do you think? Because I wonder if it's the same theory that I have.
I'm pretty sure it was the Spinosaurus.
How did it get out to the boat?
Well, we do see, as it's attacking them on a boat later in the movie, that it's got quite a way of just silently swimming its way through water.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, because I was thinking it was pteranodons, but you know what? I think you could be right. That's Spinosaurus, I'm telling you. It was great to get to see another dinosaur. Like, the T-Rex is such a powerful symbol of dinosaur dominance, but I feel like Spinosaurus gets overlooked because it actually is bigger.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that in a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes, what we get at the beginning is kind of the situation of the, crash landing of Eric and Ben. And then we don't get anything else until they've been on the island and they find Ben's decomposed body hanging from the tree.
Oh, I'll never forget.
The parachute.
Scream.
Oh, man. And the camera, so we get a little bit of knowing that, like, okay, well, at least he got free and he's on the island somewhere. But then we don't see him again until he swoops in with his gas grenades and saves Alan from the Raptors.
Yes. I loved the interactions between Eric and Grant.
Yeah.
I felt like there was mutual respect on both sides. I love that Eric had read both of the books that Grant wrote, and he also read Malcolm's books too.
Yeah, that was a funny line to me. I love that. He's like, did you read Malcolm's book too? And he kind of goes like, yeah, but it was all just about chaos and everything's chaos. And he's like, I love the last line. He's like, that guy seemed kind of high on himself. And
Grant's like, yeah, we have that in common.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, you've pegged him down pretty well.
Yeah, I liked that too. Yeah, he said the books were too preachy.
Yep.
I really liked
It sounds like Ian Malcolm to me. Yeah.
Yes. I loved, though, the quote where he says that he read both of his books and he liked the first one more. Before you were on the island, you liked dinosaurs back then. And I feel like that hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Because Grant is fine if he's with his fossils, but he is not one to be out studying in the wild.
Yeah. And that's what Grant says. He says, well, that was before they tried to eat me.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, Eric is a cool character to see, because you never really know with, he's supposed to be 12, I think they mention.
Yeah.
Seems a little older, maybe. I don't know. But
it's very resourceful.
But yeah, you never know. With kid characters, you're like, okay, are they going to be obnoxious and over the top and kind of annoying? Or are they going to, work towards the story? And I think Eric is really awesome because he's a very intelligent and ingenuitive kid.
Yes.
Like, he's been able to survive 8 weeks on his own on this island. He's been like raiding the engine like supplies, and he's been getting food and clothing and shelter. He's got like this like engine water truck that he's taken and
But I need you to explain to me, Pake, how did he get the T-Rex pee?
You do not want to know.
Because I couldn't imagine. He said the T-Rex pee attracts the Spinosaurus, and I'm like, well, why would you want to do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, this says it scares away the littler ones.
Yes.
Ceratosaurus or the Compies or the Raptors, they don't want to have anything to do with it. But Spinosaurus, I guess, takes it as a challenge that, oh, you're in my territory now? We'll fix that.
Yeah, that Spinosaurus, pretty legit predator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it made real fast work of that T-Rex that it faced.
It did.
So, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I like that he understood that the closer to the water that you got, the bigger the things get, which is true.
Even though that came
this before.
Off the heels of his dad saying something like, oh, I'm sure he's a smart kid. He probably knows something like that the bigger dinosaurs are all in the center of the island. So let's go towards the water.
Yeah, No, Eric is smarter than his parents.
Yeah.
He really is. He's used his time on the island wisely, and he's picked up a lot of information that can help him. Like, he stayed in that bunker because it's closer to the compound, and he figured that that's where people would start to look for him. He's super smart. And there was one moment when he is talking to his mom, and they're going through the cages and all the different, that section to go get over where they meet the pteranodons. And he has to talk down to his mother and say, I've been alone all this time. I can survive without you for like a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And that made me laugh because I thought, yep, he knows this island better than you. You should probably be listening to him.
Yeah, he's he's very capable.
Oh, absolutely. So that's all I have on that because I feel the next characters we talk to will continue and drive our story further.
Yeah. Which, I have his parents, of course, Paul and Amanda Kirby, which, we find out they've been divorced for about a year and a half, I think she says.
Yes.
But this situation and this experience is actually, it's kind of funny because then like every time you see Paul do something heroic or brave or make a smart decision or listen to this or that, and Amanda just says, the way she's just like doe eyes looking at him. Like,
like, who are you?
I know, it's like you wonder what happened in their relationship. And it seems like they are very just two different people. He's the overcautious safety kind of guy who doesn't want to take any risks and doesn't want to like adventure and live because everything's, good in his little safety bubble.
He wants to be safe.
While she's the one that is very adventurous and wants to have all these new experiences and things. And so I can see how that doesn't work out. But
yeah, she wrecks the cars.
Yeah.
And
but
he
now
drives under the speed limit.
Yeah, being wild jungle man and surviving out here on the island. Ignites a new spark for her ex-husband that she didn't have before, or at least hadn't had for a while.
Definitely. She was looking at him. Yes, like you're right. As the movie went on, she kept looking at him with more and more like, at first I think it was shock, and then it turned to this admiration, and then it was kind of, I feel like it was getting her a little excited. Like she was seeing him in this way of, well, he's lost like 25 pounds and he's out there doing things and he's making things happen. And she'd never seen him that way.
Yeah.
It's like, he's never been like this, and that was probably going through her head. Like, who is this man? He's not the one I married. He's being very reckless and he's not really thinking. He's just doing what needs to be done. And I think she's just not used to seeing him in that light.
Yeah. And it's enough to where their connection is strong enough and what she feels for him to where kind of in their final showdown with the Spinosaurus, where for a moment it looks like he may have died. So he falls off of that structure into the water and she's sitting there screaming for him like, how dare you? Don't leave me. Don't leave me. And he swims back up to the side. I'm not going anywhere. It was just,
my God.
It's a cool moment, but like you could really see at that moment, like,
yeah,
there was something there for him again.
Yes. I don't think it disappeared for him.
No.
I think he was still really into her. I think that she had perhaps grown a little tired and wanted to not play things so safe in life. I think she wanted to, be more adventurous. That was her personality.
Yeah. And one little thing that was a little weird with her that I don't know if it would be a complaint, but I have it marked down because it was something I was like, at least I got to talk about it, is, we talked about when they find Ben's body and she's all tangled up in the wires and stuff. And
yes. I think
definitely
I know where you're going.
Traumatized the shit out of her. But then when she's able to kind of calm down and Paul goes up to her and is like, I'm sorry about Ben. And then she has this line where she says, it's not Ben, it's Eric because he's out here all alone. And I'm thinking, I get prioritizing your child, but you seem to just be very nonchalant about your boyfriend just like being dead hanging from a tree and like finding him that way. Like she was like, got over that pretty quickly. And it was a little weird to me.
I'm like, it's been 8 weeks. Did you just, over 8 weeks decide, oh, well, it doesn't matter? It couldn't have been a very good boyfriend. Couldn't have been the type of relationship that you remember.
Yeah. When you see that, and as scary and terrible as it was, But then immediately she was just like, well, I don't really care about him that much. I'm worried about Eric being out here alone. That's what's bothering me.
I don't know. I think you should be, you can be both.
Mm-hmm.
You can be both at the same time. You don't have to, be all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull on both of those emotions at that time.
Yeah.
Why she didn't, only Amanda Kirby knows.
Mm-hmm.
I did think one thing I felt was really funny is if they're so wealthy, why are they taking them to a bar?
Because they're not so wealthy. It's like a first clue. It's like a first clue.
I feel like that's the first clue. Because they're at this bar and I'm like, yeah.
She's like, me and my wife want to take you out to dinner, our treat.
Yes.
You expect it to be some fancy restaurant, and it's like, oh no, they're like getting burgers and fries at some dive bar somewhere.
No, they're probably getting the 50-cent wings. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, 50-cent wings are great. I don't know. I just expected, if you're so wealthy, why, take them to a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
Get them a nice steak.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Did not happen.
There are a few other characters that we get.
Just a few.
And there's not a lot to talk about them with. Mainly Udesky, we talked about him a little bit. And I will talk more about him when we get to dinosaurs and stuff too, I'm sure. But yeah, we see him with the satellite phone at the beginning, and as soon as it
oh my goodness.
Like, oh man, here we go. That sound will linger in my head forever.
Yes, it takes me back to old cell phones. Like, yeah. The old days, the earlier days of the cell phone. Ugh. Ringtones were a bit boring.
Except with this one, it's sounds different because that was like the old Nokia one.
Yeah.
I was doing because it wasn't quite that. It's supposed to be reminiscent of that, but it's a whole different sound that the movie itself made on its own.
Well, we got to hear it quite a few times.
Yeah. I'm going to find it. Because I got to play it. Yep.
Oh, goodness. Well.
That one. Because it was like, because I did that like Nokia one. I was like, that's not exactly though. Because it's like do 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 do.
Yes.
Its own little unique tone for the movie. And
that is wonderful. I did not know that. That is something new.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they took a certain sat phone that existed that does not come in yellow, and they repainted it to make it a little more bright because that shows that it's like an important piece to the movie. But then it also covers up all like the branding and logos and stuff that are on it.
Yes.
And it doesn't have that actual like Nokia ringtone because I mean those sounds are probably under some kind of copyright.
Of course.
And so they were like, well, it sounds like it. So that's where they came up with that one. Was its own unique sound for the movie. I think that's cool.
Well, they did a good job with it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, poor Udesky, he's not even one of the mercenaries. He's just kind of the booking agent.
Yeah.
And he ended up going out there because one guy got sick and couldn't come. And I'm thinking, this is not the time to be filling in.
No.
It's not the time to fill in when your coworker calls out. Should not be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not the mission for it.
Yeah. But he's the guy that was in charge of finding and hiring Cooper and Nash.
Oh, goodness.
He could assure you they're the best guys for the job. I mean, I've never met them before, but they're really good. And then yeah. I don't know about that.
I don't know either.
Tough, but
yeah.
They didn't make it long.
Not so tough when you look at the way that they died so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Cooper
tough
was
at all.
just snatched up by the Spinosaurus in front of the plane, and then Nash was just pulled out after he had taken that sat phone and put it in his pocket.
Yes.
So that becomes a whole fun running thing for the movie.
That was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you hear that, you're wondering, where are they going to find it?
Yep.
Is it going to be in the Spinosaurus? Is it going to be in the poop?
Mm-hmm.
You just never know.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
And then, or is it going to be on the boat where Alan is trying to use it to contact Ellie, which is kind of the big moment there at the end. Because I love how I've kind of made the sat phone into its own character because it really kind of was.
It is.
But yeah,
you told us about the coloring of it. You've told us about covering up the logo and the ringtone you've played.
Yeah.
You have. It's its own character. The little yellow sat phone.
Yeah.
Character.
And he does use it to reach through to Ellie, luckily. First he gets Charlie on the phone, who was going to run the phone right to his mom, but then he got distracted by his own very serious dinosaur situation.
Yes.
So,
I love how he told his mother, who was on the phone, he's a dinosaur man. He's going, grrr.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering, did he hear all that in the background and he just decided to copy it? It was really, like, interesting. And you think about, okay, how would a 3-year-old respond to hearing all of that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie brought it. I thought it was interesting.
He was able to pull himself away from his own dinosaur.
Yes.
To get the
Yes,
phone
he
to
was.
Ellie within enough time for her to get basically just Isla Sorna Site B deadline. And then it was like, okay, I know where to send people.
Yep. And boy, does she call it.
Yeah.
Grant has friends in high places now because Ellie's husband works for the State Department.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was able to get them to come and rescue them.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even if, when they first see them and they've got one guy standing on the beach with a megaphone. Dr. Alan Grant, that's a bad idea. So good. I'm
like, what are you doing? You're acting like you're at the airport and you're picking people up, off a plane and you're just yelling names so that they'll come over to you. This isn't an airport. This is an island with really big dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which he had the cavalry behind him, so I think he was okay. But
yeah, I think so too. But it was just funny to hear them yelling, it's a bad idea. Liked that. Mm-hmm. That was funny.
Yes. Well, you have any more character? No.
No, because we have covered just about everything. Oh, there was one funny moment when they were in, I think it was, I can't remember what it was called. Oh, the outpost. When they were in the outpost, Kirby's going over to the vending machine. He's just like, does anyone have change? Does anyone have change? I've got like $1.10. And Billy just kicks it in and takes the snacks. It's like, I don't think the electricity's on. You probably don't have to put the dollars in.
No.
It's not going to work.
I love how he watches Billy do that, and as they walk off, he's like, oh, okay. So he kicks the other one.
Nothing happens.
But then he just like limps off, like, out. That didn't work.
I loved it too when Amanda goes out. She sees the phone sitting there, and she's like, what the hell? So she's going over, and I'm thinking, it's not going to be working, but good on you for taking a look to see if it would.
Yeah. Yep. And I love the little glimpse we got right after that, too.
Oh, goodness.
I know that the Spinosaurus is at the top of my list, but you know what? I feel like that's a good segue. So let's talk Raptors real quick.
Can we? I love talking Raptors. You know how I feel about the Raptors. I'm always down to talk about Raptors.
Because, that was the first glimpse of them we really see on the island. Is when she checks the phone and then she sets it down as the group starts walking off. We do see one scurry across in the background, and they have found them.
Yes, they have. They're very resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And she's walking through looking at all like the test tube type things and gets down to this last one where you get this clear picture. And she, Amanda almost looks sad when she sees it because of what it looks like, and then it moves, and that is it.
And there he goes. Which, this is one of those things that I'm just gonna have to like roll with in this movie, because I'm like, the effect in the shot is really cool and it's fun. This raptor standing there and she's looking at it, but I was like, but that seems so unnecessary on the raptor's part. Like, what is the like advantage of this raptor doing this if they're like after the eggs and they're trying to like, what's the point of it? And like, is the intelligence that high that he's going to stand there like behind this tank knowing it looks like a head floating in the tank? Like, I think they're giving the Raptors a little more credit than they're due in this moment.
I think so, but I also think that given what they did with Udesky, these Raptors have evolved, and I feel like they are extremely intelligent. And if you think back to the original film, Clever Girl and all, you remember that they had already been figuring out ways of hunting and tactics to focus in on one so the other two can come in from the side. So while I do think it's a little far-fetched, I also am kind of like, I don't know that I discount anything when it comes to raptors in this movie. In any movie, because of the way that they are. They're very resourceful.
Yeah, and I get that. So it's like, as on the Raptors part, it seems unnecessary and weird, but then my next note after that, I said, but I'll allow it because it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Of course.
So we get the Raptor vocalizations and stuff actually here now is the way that they've adapted them and evolved. And God, I love Raptor sounds in these movies so much. It's my favorite.
They're so cool. And you think about all the different things that we saw with them too. Them calling for help was such a big deal. Like you could hear almost a language. Like they were speaking a language. It wasn't just noises and sounds. They were speaking a language to each other.
Yeah.
And it just makes me want to learn more. I didn't dig deep enough in the sounds for them this time around, but I really wonder if that was what the intent was to make them sound like it was actually like a language between them all. And I also found it was really interesting, the stare down that they had with Amanda over the eggs, where she did not even take them, but yet she was the one that they were after. She was the one they had honed in on, and I'm not sure why. The
only thing that I can think of, what I think is, she's the only female in the group, a woman, and it must have been in the Raptor's mind some kind of, well, she can't have eggs of her own, so she's going to take ours. Like it has to be like they're probably putting some kind of story together on that. Like, yeah, I think that they, she was very direct. She gave me the eggs, and she took the eggs and she put them out, and it was interesting too the way that the Raptor like sniffed her. It was, it was kind of like checking her out before a fight. Like you're going to, trash talk or whatever. It was kind of like this, here I am, now I'm up in your face type thing. I thought it was kind of neat. They were becoming more than just, creatures. They were really turning into their own species of, not people, but they were becoming more human, even though they're not human, if that makes any sense. I just feel like, Now, that said, I 100% have all belief that the Raptors were going to just kill them anyway after they gave the eggs up, if it wasn't for the helicopter coming in and them hearing the helicopter after Alan had used that 3D printed larynx to make kind of like the calling for help sound. Yes. And so kind of in the Raptors, again, like their brains working to where, because, he's making the sounds and they're like, okay, is he trying to challenge us? And I think they're getting more upset. Yes. And then he was using it to for help, quote unquote, call for help. And I think they were kind of maybe in a way like they're only like chuckling at that, like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see what happens. But then the helicopters come in. It's like, oh, he has big help. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get away from here. Yeah. Oh, Raptors. Yeah. So they're fun. The smartness. I mean, we've talked about the Udesky situation, but not in exact specificity. So, I bring up, that's what it is, because it's a big scene in the movie to me that sits with me a lot. As they do is they attack him and injure him, but they don't kill him. Right. And they have him laid out in this opening to where the rest of the group can see that he's injured and needs help. And that's the whole point, is they're just leaving him there as bait to bring the other people in to help him, so then they can take them all down. Yes. And Amanda's the one that kind of falls for it, even though they're like, no, something's not right. And luckily she gets out of the situation by, again, somehow getting her legs wrapped around a giant tree trunk that she shouldn't have. She should have just fallen off of, but I'll allow it. And some things you have to allow. But then it's just a brutal thing to where, like, once they realize their plan didn't work, they just finish him off anyway. They just break his neck and move on. This is real brutal. It's quite an evolution from where they started. Like, if you think about the original Raptors on Isla Nublar, and then you see these Raptors and how being in the wild, they've adapted to the environment
And they've got some real interesting tactics for things. Having to deal with, other larger species like the Spinosaurus and the T-Rexes. They really they're very bright and intelligent, and they have figured out a way to survive there.
Yeah. All right. Well, Spinosaurus, since you mentioned him, let's talk about Spinosaurus. The big bad, in a way, of this movie.
I love that Dr. Grant says to Billy, no, it's something bigger. And I was so excited because, I love T-Rexes. They're amazing. But I think it was really cool to come in with something that was different. Not another T-Rex. They brought us something different. And I was able to dig a little deeper into this, like how this came about. And it was really the filmmakers. They wanted to replace the T-Rex with this new antagonist dinosaur. So they actually used Jack Horner, who is a technical advisor and a paleontologist, and he convinced them to go with the Spinosaurus because his thought in his head was Spinosaurus is more of a predator, and the T-Rex is more of a scavenger. So he thought it would surprise the audience to see this different looking predator versus the usual T-Rex.
Yeah. It worked well for me. I love it.
Yeah, I thought so too. When they were building the animatronic for the Spinosaurus, they built it just from the knees up, and the full body shots were CGI. They actually had to remove a wall to get it out of Stan Winston's studio. It was that big.
Huge. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, which talking about those effects, because I think the first scene we really see that, because we just get a tiny glimpse of him when the plane is taking back off the landing strip. But when we really see him again is, of course, after the plane crashes and he shows back up. So, good old Spiney's here again.
Yep.
And
ready to have lunch with Nash. He wants to have lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, he's attacking that plane cabin, rolling it around and stomping on it and everything. And it was like a mix of practical and special effects in that scene. The practical looked really decent and really good at some points. But
oh goodness,
the CGI is a little rough in this movie.
Yes.
Not gonna lie. CGI does not hold up very well in this one.
It does.
Strangely enough, the CGI that they did have to use for the first movie actually still looks better than this one does.
Yes. I felt that way too when I was watching it. There were a few moments where I was thinking, it was better in the original, which was like 7 or 8 years prior. I thought the Raptor stuff was really good, but I felt like there was Spinosaurus stuff that was okay, was good, and then really weak. And I think it was a lot of CGI.
Yeah, and then beginning of the movie when we get Eric and Ben on the paragliding situation, that CGI and the green screen work on those shots were not good at all. No. I was like, starting this movie off like, oh no.
Yeah.
Is the CGI suck this bad in this movie? Had I forgotten about that? But then luckily they pulled most of it together.
Well, and what is the difference? I mean, if you try to look at what is the difference between the first two movies and this one, a big, big part of that is the fact that Steven Spielberg was not the director. However, he was still very much involved as an executive producer. He didn't direct it. So I don't know if that played a part in it, but he still was involved. And he had he insisted upon one specific dinosaur that we saw. He wanted to make sure made an appearance in this one because in the previous two films, they had to cut them out due to budgetary concerns. And that was the Pteranodons.
Nice.
Yeah, he was insistent. He wanted to make sure that they were seen this time. And
cool.
They were pretty cool.
Yeah.
There were 5 rod puppets that were created to show like the babies, which not so great, but was okay. But mainly CGI was used to depict all of the Pteranodons.
Yeah. And it was rough in a lot of places.
It was rough in a lot of places.
Some of it was pretty decent. There's one shot in particular I'll talk about in a little bit that definitely was really cool. But still on the Spinosaurus, because I do love, they think they get away from it. and then they run right into the T-Rex. And I just have in here, I was like, out of the oven into the frying pan.
There's this dead body. It's a dead animal, and they're just like, "Oh, everything's okay." And then it looks up, and I'm just like, "Oh boy." Yeah.
Yep. Then I just had these like little pet names for them. I don't even know why. It was just shorthand in my notes. It was like running from Rexy. They bump back into Spiny. And the showdown begins.
Yes.
Of course, it didn't last long at all.
No.
Because there's a king dino in town.
Yes. Isla Sorna has one king dinosaur, and it is not the T-Rex. It is the Spinosaurus.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I wonder why we never saw him in the second movie. Where was Spinosaurus at during the Lost World?
I don't know. He was on a coffee break.
Yeah.
He took a vacation to another island.
Yeah. There you go.
He was camera shy. I don't know. Those are just a few of the probably 30 reasons we could come up with.
Yeah. But then I think my biggest roll with it moment.
Okay.
Complaint of the movie has to do with the Spinosaurus. Because I have here, so we see that it can tear clean through a giant security fence, but yet this metal door that they just simply latch cannot be broken. He can't get through that.
Yeah, I have to question that myself. I'm not really sure what was going on at that point. Yeah, it doesn't compute. And sometimes in these films, that's the type of thing that happens. But I have some information that I'll share at the end in production notes that may give you a little insight into some of the stuff that happened when they were filming this movie.
All right. Interesting. I'm intrigued. All right. Yeah. Not a whole lot left on the Spinosaurus other than just to talk about that kind of final confrontation with it. I mean, the stuff with him like reaching into the cage was, the animatronic puppeteering and stuff is okay.
Yeah.
It's a little stiff, but I'll take it. But I do love, it's hard to go wrong with a scene with a giant monster of some kind and the surface of the water being on fire.
Oh.
Usually anytime they do that, it's going to be a fun watch.
Yes. And again, coming off King Kong.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It took me back to that. I'm like, oh my gosh, the fire. Mm-hmm. But I do believe the Spinosaurus survived and walked off.
It did. But then we never see him again.
Nope.
Spoiler for anybody who hasn't watched all the Jurassic movies, World and stuff. I'm kind of hoping they find a way to bring Spinosaurus back, because this is the only time we see him right here.
I know, and I don't know, because I feel like while Isla Nublar, spoiler alert for anyone who has not seen Jurassic World or Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, cover your ears for the next 20 seconds. Isla Nublar is no more. What happens to Isla Sorna, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Pake, I like to think he's still living peacefully on that island.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go with that.
Hanging out, Isla Sorna, doing his thing.
Yep.
Being his spiny best.
Yes.
But yeah, you mentioned the pteranodons.
Yes.
A little bit, of course. And yeah, I'm really glad that we finally got them, because I know you had mentioned, Spielberg had really wanted to make them a part of these movies since the beginning, and it's just never really worked out.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to.
The fact that we finally get them in their full glory and get to have some fun with it, I do love.
I know, and the cool thing is when they were trying to figure out the animatronics and how to actually create these flight movements, they studied like bats and birds, which makes a lot of sense. You think about what a pteranodon actually looks like. And some of the research when I was looking up pteranodons, it's really interesting how people will get confused between pteranodons and pterodactyls because they're similar. But there are some differences, but I'm not going to go into that here because we didn't see pterodactyls. So we'll just focus on the pteranodons.
Yeah.
I love how they use the fog during the scene with the pteranodons because it gave you glimpses. You only saw parts and pieces. So when you finally got the full picture of the full pteranodon, it was just that cool moment of, oh my God, they actually put it in there.
Yeah, it was a huge reveal that was really cool because you get that, that line from Alan Grant that I love. Oh my God, it's a bird cage.
Yes.
And
I love that too.
For what? And you get that reveal there, this big pteranodon on the bridge, and then it snatches up Eric as he's running back towards his dad and sets off this whole chain of events that was just really cool. Like even if the CGI was a little spotty here and there, they still managed to make the pteranodons scary, make them a threat.
Yes.
And I think it was cool. We get the moment of Alan kicking one in the beak as it's like coming down on them through this like cage, like walkway, which is like a fun moment. That whole thing collapses and falls into the water, and then the cage lands on top of it. It's really fun. You get the little baby ones that are climbing all over Eric and picking and pulling at him.
I know. And then he takes off and runs across. I'm like, oh my God, I have such a fear of heights. I mean, you're running for your life, but I'm thinking, oh my God, could I do it? Could I run on those? They're so high up. I don't know. I think I would be freaked out.
Yeah, which Billy's able to swoop in and pick him up, but then we get a few of the bigger ones then that swarm over Billy and pick him, after he falls into the water. And then we get the shot that I was mentioning earlier that I loved, even if it's in CGI, it looked really great, is this chilling shot of when Billy supposedly dies, as the blood is pulling up in the water and everything, as these pteranodons are swimming after him as he's floating away and pecking down on him. And then the focus just hard cuts to another pteranodon that's sitting there on the water's edge that you didn't even notice was there until you just see him just turn and look directly at Alan and Paul.
Oh my God, yes.
It's so cool. So cool.
I love that. I loved that. I thought yes, it flowed perfectly. I like the way that was shot. It was great.
Yeah.
There was a lot of tension and action in this movie. I think it started earlier than usual because I feel like the other two movies have had this longer period of coming and getting set up. And this one, no. I felt like, okay, we have a little setup and then we get to the island and it's boom, boom, boom. Action, action, action. And I liked that too. I liked the faster pace.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, when they escaped the bird cage, so of course the gate didn't close all the way.
Never.
Of course not.
Never. No, why would it?
And so then as they're flying away with the military at the end, and they see the pteranodons that had escaped from that gate flying off the island into freedom. And it was another one of those things because I was like, well, Grant seems very unbothered and matter-of-fact about this whole realization that, oh, they're loose out in the wild. Oh, they're trying to find somewhere else to nest. Like, you don't think that's going to be a problem?
I know. I was kind of surprised that he wasn't more worried about it.
Yeah. Like, you'd think that would be more of a problem. And I remember questioning, like, why wasn't it? Because like they don't mention it in Jurassic World or anything, like this moment where they left. So I had to do a little digging, and I found something fun.
All right, bring it on! I want to hear it.
So apparently, when Jurassic World was kind of in production and came out, and similar to an ARG situation where you can go movies will have websites, or even like Westworld, the TV show Westworld, and HBO did it. You go on their website and you could look at like plans and like ads for all the different parks, and and it kind of built the world that way. Yeah. So Jurassic World was doing the same thing. You could go to the Masrani website.
Wow.
And there's a website set up for that. And there was a kind of a blurb or something on that where Masrani is talking about Vic Hoskins, which we will get into all that if we go to Jurassic World and things like that down the road.
Yes, we will.
But this is from the Masrani website, and he's talking about Vic Hoskins, and he says he's a seasoned security contractor. Vic Hoskins was involved in overseeing the infamous flying reptile cleanup operation over Canada in 2001. Due to the professionalism his team displayed, he was hired personally by Simon Masrani to redevelop Engine's security division, which helped oversee the protection of workers on Isla Nublar during Jurassic World's construction. So, if we kind of piece together a backstory off of what happened here, is those pteranodons left at Jurassic Park 3, and they found a new nesting ground somewhere in Canada.
Yes, that does not sound good.
And before it could become a major problem, apparently Vic Hoskins was involved in overseeing some kind of, military operation in order to take care of that before it was a problem.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And that's what got him the job at Malzahn.
Well, that's good to know. Did not like him. Even though I put Dennis Nedry as at the top of my list of characters that, I didn't like. Vic Hoskins, I didn't like for other reasons. Mm-hmm. He was a bad, bad man. Yeah. I feel like Nedry was just greedy. Vic Hoskins.
But we'll talk more about that when we get to Jurassic World.
Yes, we will. We're not going to go down that road now.
But I did find that, and I thought that was really cool because it was one of those things. It was like, I remember being, after Jurassic Park 3, way before Jurassic World was ever a thing. I was a fan of these movies. So for years and years, I spent all this time, from 2001 to, 2015. I'm sitting here being like, but what about,
what about the pteranodons?
Leaving? Like, what's going to happen? And so when Jurassic World comes out and you're like, oh, I guess that just isn't going to be addressed. And so it's cool to have now kind of, while doing a little research for this movie, finally digging in and finding that and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Wow. I did not know that about Vic Hoskins. And that is a great find and something that we'll definitely mention when we cover Jurassic World, which we will be covering Jurassic World at a later time.
Absolutely.
As we count down to Dominion being released.
We'll cover everything. So we still got 2 more movies to go before Dominion.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Yes, we definitely do.
All right. Do you have any more Pteranodon notes?
I do not. But I have notes about a few others that we saw. Just a few other dinosaurs. Pake, did you make your list of the dinosaurs that we saw in this movie?
I absolutely did.
Excellent.
I would.
I knew you would come through. I knew you would come through.
So, we get the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park 3, and I've got it alphabetized this time.
Wonderful.
So it's fairly in the order that we see them, but of course, the first one, Ankylosaurus.
I love them. They're so cute.
In the jungle and drinking the edge of the water. We get the Brachiosaurus again, of course.
Oh, love Brachiosauruses. They're so great.
Ceratosaurus.
That was the red-horned lizard.
Yes, I like that one, which I have one note about him. I love, he walks up to them and they're all kind of like, oh no, not again. Another one? What is this? And he kind of sniffs at them. And then it was almost like the Office style of like, he looked into the camera, almost like breaking the fourth wall. Where the dinosaur like looks into camera almost and has this like look like, nah, these people smell like shit. I'm going.
Yes, agreed. I thought the same thing.
It's funny. But then we get Compsognathus. We do get the Compies.
Love Compies.
For just a little bit. They gotta sprinkle them in there.
Yes.
Even if the only killing that the Compies did in this movie was flies.
Yes, that was funny.
I'll take it.
I liked it.
Of course, your other classic herbivores that we love to see in these movies, the Corythosaurus and the Parasaurolophus.
Yes.
Show up in the herd.
Yes.
Of course, we get our Pteranodons.
Yes.
And Spinosaurus.
Mm-hmm.
We get Stegosaurus. We get Triceratops. Even if it's just like high over, head aerial shots of some of these things, but they're there.
I know. I loved seeing all of them.
And then it kind of works out that even though it is alphabetical, that I do love that the last 2 still kind of are the heavy hitters of the Jurassic Park franchise because we get Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor.
Yes. Every list should end with that.
Not all of the list, because there are 2 that are mentioned but not shown. And that is when Billy's trying to figure out what the Spinosaurus was.
Yes.
And he mentions Suchomimus and Baryonyx. By name.
They tossed around the idea of using Baryonyx.
They did use Baryonyx, and it was cut. I have a list of a few different dinosaurs.
Oh, no.
That maybe were not filmed or like actually rendered and used, but were in the script, and at one point were supposed to be in this movie, but then were cut at one time or another.
We do get the Baryonyx in another film.
Yes. But the ones that were supposed to appear in this movie, whether they did any CGI on them or not, or maybe they were just in the script or, pre-production, but then ended up getting cut for budget and time restraints, were the Baryonyx, the Carnotaurus, the Mosasaurus, and the Ouranosaurus.
Okay. So
But we get a lot of those in later.
We definitely do. The Carnotaurus we got in a later film. So don't worry, folks. Just because we didn't get them in this one, we will get them in a future film.
Mosasaurus plays a pretty big part in the next one.
Yes. love Mosasaurus. Oh, so good. Such great
that is
dinos.
the dinosaur list.
I love it. I love it. Do you have any other notes on the dinosaurs?
I don't.
Well, we should probably segue into some production notes that I have because, there's some things I learned about this, including some work on the script that I found very interesting. But we'll start with Sam Neill was really glad to come back and work on this movie because he felt that his work on the first film could have been better. And so he wanted the opportunity to be in another film and show more or do more in his acting, which I thought was interesting because I thought he was spot on in the original. So yeah. William H. Macy actually had turned down the role of Paul Kirby because he had scheduling conflicts, but Laura Dern was in a film with him called Focus, and she encouraged him to take the part. So I thought that was kind of cool. Johnston was interested in directing a sequel after the release of the original film Jurassic Park, but since Steven Spielberg was coming back to do The Lost World, he decided that Johnston could direct number 3.
Cool.
Spielberg. So I thought that was kind of cool. And Johnston kind of has that relationship with Spielberg because he's worked in visual effects on movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He also worked on visuals and art on Return of the Jedi and I believe The Empire Strikes Back, which I thought was kind of cool. So he kind of knows that. He has that visual storytelling background, I think. Yeah. So there were parts of this that I thought came across really well and others that maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So the script for this movie had quite a few rewrites. There was a first draft that was done by Craig Rosenberg, and then a second draft that was done by Peter Buckman. And the director and Spielberg rejected that second draft. And David Kapp, who wrote the script for the first 2 films, suggested to them this rescue mission type storyline, which was simplified. So they took that and they also incorporated sequences from the first and second drafts of the script. So they kind of built this final script from a bunch of different ideas. And Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor worked on it as well. They took the sequences and put them in. And they were the ones who decided that they needed to bring back Ellie Sattler. Nice. It was their idea.
Good choice. Even if it's a small,
guys.
It's always good to have her.
Peter Buckman was also brought back in to work on some of the revisions. And Payne was quoted as saying they created a new script, but other than the action, they took out the rest of what Payne and Taylor had done. So that was kind of interesting. And then I dug and found some additional information about the filming. And it took 5 months for this film to complete the actual filming part.
Mm-hmm.
The final script was not even completed during the production. They were shooting pages that went into the final script, but there was no document for them to follow. Ending hadn't been written. And at one point, Johnston considered quitting the project altogether because there was no clarity on where the film was going to go. And he likened it to a living hell on a daily basis and nerve-wracking.
Wow.
And William H. Macy was also critical of the slow pace of the filming and the fact that there was no finished script. He said that they would do like a quarter of a page or an eighth of a page filming in a 12-hour day. So that was quite a bit, I think.
Yeah.
Taya Leone said that because actors were often frequently bruised and battered during the filming, they had to use more makeup to cover the real bruises than to create the fake ones, which I thought was kind of interesting. John Williams, our wonderful John Williams, was not available to do the scoring on this film, so Don Davis actually wrote the score, but he also utilized original themes and some new ones integrated in to make the score that we heard for this film. And during pre-production, concept artists created promotional mock-ups using the titles Jurassic 3 Extinction, Jurassic Park Breakout, and The Extinction Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah, I could see that last one because that's why what they did is, of course, it would have been nice to even just drop the 3. I could see them do it because that's what they did with the last sequel. It was just the Lost World Park. So this is Extinction Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Like that could be the whole thing.
Agreed. As we talked about, the movie has a combination of these animatronic and CGI dinosaurs by Stan Winston, who did the animatronics, and Industrial Light and Magic. More than 400 effect shots were used, twice the amount of shots featured in the 2 previous films combined, and less than half the effects involved dinosaurs. Anything that had a focus on the surroundings, like trees and anything that the dinosaurs touched, were visually added through CGI, so there was a lot of work done in that. Yeah. And I believe that is all I have for production notes. That was quite a bit, though.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Learned a lot. They really went through a lot filming this movie.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have wanted to work on it. I love these movies, but I'm just, it seems like it was a lot of stress.
Yeah. And then even, I know it depends on who you talk to, whether it paid off or not when this movie came out, because it can be pretty divisive. There's still a lot of people that do not like this movie at all.
Yes.
And kind of look at it as a stain on the Jurassic series.
I know.
I don't fall into that camp. I love it for what it is. I really do enjoy it. For, is it as good as the first or the second one? No. Is it as good as the Jurassic World movies that they come out? No. Well, Fallen Kingdom is another that's pretty divisive. There's people that hate that one too. So it depends on who you talk to on things.
Yeah.
But I still think it holds its place in this series very well.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the worst one of the series. I'm not sure that it is. And I love them all. Even with their flaws, I accept them for what they are. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it is time to get into some quotes then, which is always a fun part, even though I know we've sprinkled a lot throughout talking, but there's always some we got to hang on. So what do you got?
Okay. So after they're marooned on the island, Paul, Kirby, and Amanda are having a little argument, and Paul says to her, "Fine, go ahead and scream. And when that tricyclopods attacks you, don't come crying to me." I'm like, boy, you put a lot of dinosaur names in that little one. Tricyclopods. That's a mouthful. I wonder how he was able to even say that. Oh my goodness. We already did one of my quotes, which was when Eric rescued Dr. Grant from the Raptors and they're in the bunker. It talks about reading the books. And then we kind of went through this one too, which was Dr. Grant's response after realizing Billy put the raptor eggs in his camera bag. He said, "With the best intentions, some of the worst things imaginable have been done with the best intentions. You know what, Billy? As far as I'm concerned, you're no better than the people that built this place." It was a very, harsh thing.
Yeah.
That he said. And I feel like he was really upset. I think he felt betrayed. And it was harsh. And it really hit him after because he thought that Billy had died.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was one of those things. I have a bunch of little one-liners, but
lay them out. Go for it.
I think it was Dr. Grant that said, "Reverse Darwinism, survival of the idiotic." And then in a response to Billy, he said, "You got me into this. I have no intention of being on my own with these people," which I thought was funny. And then Udesky said, "Search for your son in the direction that they're going." Mm-hmm. When he was trying to get them to understand. I mean, he was smart.
Yeah.
He knew he was in over his head, and he knew going with the others was the right idea. He was trying to fulfill, a requirement by, helping them look for their son. But he also realized that they had no clue what they were doing. And so he just, was like, okay, we need to go. There was another point later on where he just basically says, "I'm going with you guys." It's like smart. Udesky, smart. And this was really one of the last roles for Michael Jeter, who played Udesky. Yeah. It's one of his last films. It might have been the next to last.
Yeah, he passed away in 2003, so 2 years later.
Yeah, he had a couple of films that came out after he had died. But this was one of the last ones released where he was actually still alive when it came out. Yeah. So those are what I have.
Yeah. Yeah, Udesky was great. And so, when I go through mine, the first two are involving him, which one of them you did just mention. But so, of course, the first one is Alan Grant says, "All right, so why me?" And Paul says, "He said we needed someone who'd been on the island before." And Udesky follows up with, "Yes, but I did not tell you to kidnap somebody."
Oh, yes. So good. Such a good one.
The other Udesky one that you did mention, and it ties into one of yours, is the tricycle plots line. As Paul and Amanda are having this argument, and Udesky just looks over to Billy and says, "If we split up, I'm going with you guys." Which is great.
I loved that. Oh, and then I did.
The other ones that I have, I think we've all mentioned at some point during this the coverage, but I'm going to go through them again because I have the exact quotes, and I like to just kind of lay them out, and they're fun. Is, of course, Alan asking Eric, "This is T-Rex pee? How'd you get it?" And Eric just responds, "You don't want to know."
I know. I can't imagine how he was able to get his hands on that. Oh, it's crazy.
And what Eric says to his mom before crossing the bridge, before the pteranodon appears to him, well, that's what he says, "Mom, I've been alone in a water truck for 8 weeks. I think I can manage the next 2 minutes without you."
Yes. So good. So good.
And then near very end of the movie, where Billy is alive and we see him and he says to Alan, "I rescued your hat." And Alan responds with, "Oh, yeah. Well, that's the important thing."
Yes. It's that dry humor.
Yeah.
I love it. So many quotable moments. So many quotable moments in this film.
Yes.
So many. Oh, all goodness. Right.
Well, that brings us to the part that you love to do and go first every time. You love it so much.
No, I don't. Ranking. I do like to do it, but I don't always like to go first. But you've made it part of our structure to push me to go first.
Yes.
And so this time I will go first.
All right.
I can handle that for this movie. But there are some coming up, Pake. I'm going to push it back to you.
All right. Fair enough.
Okay. So I actually did check in on what I gave Smart Thing. May take this out, but I actually checked in on what I gave the first two films before this.
I did the same thing.
Just to make sure that I'm still within the realm of everything. So at the end of the day, I loved the dinosaurs in this film. I loved seeing old characters. Is it as good as The Lost World? No. Is it as good as Jurassic Park? No. So my question to myself when coming up with my ranking was, what is the difference? Like, how much further back is it? And so at the end of the day, I decided, though it's back, it's not as far back as, like, taking it completely out of the range. So I'm going to go in with an 8.3.
All right. Pretty good. I did a very similar thing as far as I looked back at what I gave the other ones. and had to kind of assess that way, being like, well, it's not as good as those two. And I kind of found maybe there's just a Jurassic like formula that is going on, but I think it's going to change when we get to Jurassic World. But
yes, it might.
I noticed I go back because Jurassic Park I gave a 9, which thinking back at it now, that could definitely be way higher.
Yes,
but we
Pake should be way higher.
It should be, yes,
it should.
But going online with this, because that was a 9, and then I gave The Lost World an 8.5. So just falling in line with the trajectory of going with that, I landed on an 8 for this.
Excellent. Excellent. So I feel like we were in the same realm of things. Even if our scores aren't completely close together, I feel like we are like using the same logic when coming up with these scores. Even though they don't mean anything whatsoever.
Not at all. No.
I think it's totally fine.
Mm.
It was a fun movie. It was so much fun to geek out about the dinosaurs. And I'm really looking forward to doing Jurassic World. Probably not for a few months, but...
It'll be a little while.
But I look forward to doing it because it's one of my favorites. Oops.
Oh. Looks like we're getting a call. I think it's feedback time.
It looks like we've got 3 messages this week coming from a special Jurassic Park, Jurassic World Facebook group that we have some feelers out into.
Yes.
Reached out to some JP fans out there, JW in the West, well, whatever. Jurassic fans.
All
we'll
things
call it
Jurassic.
Yeah.
I'm in this Facebook group, and there's some really cool people in it. They share lots of interesting things that I never even knew were out there. So I'm having a lot of fun in there just reading what everyone is posting. And so I put out a message and said, hey guys, what do you guys think about Jurassic Park 3? Because it is kind of, as we've talked about, that movie that it incites a lot of thoughts and feelings, but it's not necessarily all positive. So I did get to some responses, so I'm excited to share those now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll start with this first one that comes from Declan. He says, I always thought if that movie wasn't a part of such a massive franchise and didn't have to live up to what came before it, then it would not have had such bad press. Imagine if you saw that before the previous films, it would have been amazing. It just suffered with rewrites and other production issues.
Yes, it did. None of the other films had to go through all of that. Just happened over and over again. I'm surprised that it was able to get made considering the number of rewrites and changes that it went through to get to what we ended up seeing.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I think, if you're a big fan of Jurassic movies, then if you're, put it, in the lineup with all the other ones, you're like, yeah, that one has a lot of weak moments, but as a standalone film, and that helped when we got to break it down this episode. It was really focus on it as just itself.
Yes.
There's a lot to appreciate and love about it.
Absolutely. I love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about it. So Richard from the group says, as a standalone, an incredible film and one of my favorites. Always loved the portrayal of the velociraptors in this one. Everything from the look to the movement. We did kind of talk about that in this episode.
This movie really, I think what's good about it is it set the Raptors up as, because the first one does focus on them a lot.
Yes.
But this one really reiterates the importance of the velociraptors and their personality, I guess, that really moves forward even into the Jurassic World movies. Now you really see the Raptors they're a very key character to the Jurassic series.
I would say so. Yeah. They become very important, especially in the next film. So I feel like you're right. It's been building throughout the first couple.
Yeah. And then this last one comes from Thomas, who says, I'm not too keen on JP3 myself. I much prefer Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Jurassic World. However, I do prefer it over Fallen Kingdom, and it's nice to hear people who genuinely like it defend it.
I agree. I agree that it is nice when people defend it. It can open you up to understanding things a little bit better. If you just have to be open-minded and give it a chance, because sometimes you may miss something that changes the way that you look at it completely. And with this film, I'm kind of in Thomas's, thinking like Thomas's, because I prefer the other three. And then I'm not sure about Fallen Kingdom versus Jurassic Park 3. I mean, Pteranodons. Jurassic Park 3 had the Spinosaurus and the Pteranodons. And as a dinosaur lover, it's hard not to love that. So
yeah, and it's, because we get the new, we'll get to those movies soon enough, but, because then, with the Jurassic World movies, then you have kind of these, like, scientifically, like, experimental dinosaurs that are, and it makes for really cool monster and action stories and sequences, but it hurts the little bit of, like, the dinosaur fan that's in you, because you're like, these things aren't real. These aren't real dinosaurs. And so Jurassic Park 3 did a great job of being like, oh, like Spinosaurus and Pteranodon, like you mentioned, like these just larger than life and incredible actual dinosaurs that we get to finally see on screen.
Yes, and should we let folks know our little secret about what else we're covering from the Jurassic Park world?
I think we should, since it is the next one on the docket down the road. We're still not sure on our scheduling on when it's going to be released, but we've got to fill some time before Dominion actually is released. So, yeah, we've decided instead of just jumping right into Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, we have some fun extra little stuff to do between those movies in the Jurassic world.
Yes.
Jurassic universe.
Yes. And it's cool because those episodes we've already talked a little bit about, basically anyone will be able to listen to them.
Yes. Be very family friendly, kid friendly, let your kids listen. And I know that we haven't actually said what it is yet. So yeah, we will be covering the Netflix animated series Camp Cretaceous. For those who don't know what it is, yeah, it's on Netflix. It's an animated series. It's kind of like a kid's series, but it's got some like really good story and great stuff to it. I've only watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, but it is a good like excuse to jump in. And if you have kids who are fans of it, or that, then it's safe to at least listen to around them.
Yes.
When we're talking about those episodes, but then if you have kids who are kind of, I don't know how many kids are into podcasts, probably not many, but if there are any who want to hear people talking about this show, if they like it, then your kids can listen in on the Camp Cretaceous. And I think we're going to just cover like the whole, there's 2 seasons out right now, and season 3 should be coming out soon-ish. So
yeah,
we're just going to cover season 1 in an entire episode.
Yes.
And then season 2 in its own entire episode. So we're not breaking down like episode by episode, but yeah, I think it'll be fun. Like 2 extra episodes of this podcast we can get out is covering those seasons. And
I'm so excited.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
It's going to be great. More dinosaurs. I'm always down for that. You know that. So
Yes.
I'm excited that we're going to do that. And yeah, we'll have to get it on the schedule.
Yes, for sure. Got plenty of time to fill, though, before Dominion, unfortunately, because they just keep pushing it back and taking it away from us.
I know. I'm so disappointed. I was looking forward to seeing it this year. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there are a lot of Jurassic Park, Jurassic World fans out there that are wishing that we were going to get it. It would have been a great present in June, but now we'll be waiting until June 2022.
Ugh. But
I know.
At least some other things have been moved up for us. Like I know Godzilla versus Kong is very soon.
March
end of the
31st.
month. And then I think A Quiet Place 2 has been moved up to May this year, so we don't have too much longer to wait. So
excited.
We will get to some of our like sequels and stuff that we've been hoping for and waiting for sooner than later. But then Dominion, as far as of right now, is still quite a ways away.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be nice and move it up as we get closer. Who knows?
Oh, one can only hope. So, Pake, if people want to send in feedback to us, can you break it down for them on what they need to do?
Absolutely. It's easy. There's just a few ways, best ways to get your feedback to us in any way you want to. You can go to Facebook, facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast, and leave a comment or message to us there on any of our posts. And then you can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can also send a voicemail that way. The easiest way to do it is just record like a voice memo and then email it to us there, and it'll sound great, and we get your voice on here. You can find us on Twitter at RFYL Podcast or Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. And then, of course, the best way to go about it is just hit up our website. And if you want to share the love and send other people here to listen to this podcast, send them to runforyourlivespodcast.com. because that will have links to all of those social media pages, our YouTube, and then all different podcast players like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Pandora, Stitcher. We're on everything, so you can find us everywhere.
Yeah, any new platforms that come out, I'm always on it to get us on those as well. You never know what's going to come out next, so I check it every once in a while to add to it.
Awesome. And then a few other things going on in the podcast universe around us. Our friends that we know, what we're podcasting. Not a lot going on right now. Strange Indeed is kind of on like a little break for a few weeks, but we will be coming back with something soon.
Yes, looking forward to that.
Yes.
Looking forward to learning what you guys are going to cover so I can find out. Am I going to watch a new series? An old series?
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
But of course, I can always say, you know, when I listen to our friends Mark and Steve over at Panels to Pixels, WandaVision is over. So the last episode, you can go over there and check out them covering the WandaVision series finale, which, oh boy, that was a good one. So definitely check that out.
We've had some great discussions about that, the ending of that series over the last week.
Yes.
Man.
And then, of course, also on Panels to Pixels, they are still covering Snowpiercer Season 2 weekly as those episodes come out. And that would be Steve and Daphne covering that. So.
Love Snowpiercer. Having a great time with Steve. And yeah, only a couple episodes left and it's going to be over.
Man. They've been picked up for Season 3, though, already?
They have.
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
I think they're filming right now.
Awesome.
Which is great.
It's a good show.
It is, but it's also, I'm hoping that what they do, as good as it is, that they don't overstay the welcome and like end it when it should be ended and not keep it going for like 10 seasons. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that they will end it when it should be ended.
Yeah. Which, speaking of shows that are ending kind of when they need to be ending, Walking Dead cast is back and they are covering this little like 6-episode extended season with these little standalone kind of pandemic filmed episodes, which are really interesting. It's kind of forces them to take different styles and ways of filming and telling story, which I like.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed how they have brought these little mini stories to life. And I'm also appreciating them digging back into things that we haven't ever seen. Like just those little nuanced stories that it's cool to be able to get the information. Yeah, and I like the way they're telling it.
So if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, like me and Daphne very much are, then
yes, we are.
Definitely check out The Walking Dead cast on Podcastica.
Yes.
And then, speaking of stuff coming up on podcasts, Daphne, what is going on next week right here on Run for Your Lives?
Well, we have one of our special, wonderful holiday extravaganza podcasts, basically. We are going to be breaking down a movie with our good friend Derek from TV Podcast Industries. It is an Irish independent monster film called Grabbers, and we're going to be releasing it on Wednesday, March 17th. So it's going to be a couple days early.
Yeah, because we got to release it on St. Patrick's Day.
Of course we do. We love celebrating holidays and coming up with these cool movies that fit that holiday theme. So we're going to be doing that next week.
Yeah. Yep. Seems a little stereotypical, but you know what? It was his idea, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. We've got, St. Patrick's Day episode released about an Irish movie. Takes place mainly a lot in a pub, and we have our favorite Irishman, Derek, co-hosting with us. So I'm very excited for everybody to hear that one. It's so much fun.
It's so much fun. It was so great. When we asked Derek to come on the podcast, like we do with all of our guests, we asked him to pick the movie. This is the movie he picked. I could not have been more excited because I've seen it a bunch of times and loved it. And this was Pake's first time viewing it. So to get his thoughts, you're going to have to wait until the episode comes out on Wednesday.
Yes. All right. Thanks everybody so much.
And thanks also for bearing with us during some of our technical difficulties over the last couple of weeks. If you noticed,
my audio's been a little wonky because we've been recording through different ways, and it's bad. But I have my MacBook now, so episodes will start sounding a lot better audio wise now and very soon as they go. So
we really appreciate you guys bearing with us, and With that, we've reached the end of our episode. Another fantastic, fun episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I am Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from velociraptors, a Spinosaurus, or other assorted Site B dinosaurs, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.